Hey guys, and welcome back to the Hidebound Convivium. It is May 21st, 2021, and today we'll be talking about socialism and socialists and their lack of imagination. At the very least, that's my charge against the socialists of 2021, especially as they're manifested on YouTube. I've been getting in my YouTube recommendations. I guess maybe this is YouTube's attempt to de-radicalize me. I'm not sure, but at any rate, I get recommendations for these socialist content creators. The ones I can think of off the top of my head are Second Thoughts, and I think Solari perhaps is the name of the other channel. I can't remember, but essentially there are these pretty polished, pretty well sort of developed uh, videos that have a lot of intellectual content in them, and they mostly these content creators, they talk a lot about things like actual sort of highbrow sort of real issues, not like sort of culture war issues. There's a little bit of that as well, but mainly it's things like just the economy in general, like the job market, and things that people are really concerned about: climate change, United States imperialism, and these sort of highbrow intellectual topics that are a little bit above the normal fare of like which uh, which what kind of representation do we need in the latest terrible AAA video game, something like that. Um, and what I've noticed is that the this is the that way with all socialists. I've found, like, really thoughtful socialists, is that I listen to them, and I really encourage you guys to go and listen to some of these videos because I think they're very well done. Some of them, um, and so you listen to them and you think, okay, I'm rolling with you. I'm listening to you. I'm understanding, and a lot of their points I agree with. Like, for example, it is true, and I mean this has to do with, I think, just Marx in general, and Marxists sometimes they make really good points. Like, yes, right now in our current economic paradigm is completely screwed up. um, there is too much power concentrated in the hands of capital and in the hands of business leaders. And there is a parasitic relationship between the captains of industry, the leaders of the major businesses in the United States and the Western world in general, and with national governments. And sometimes the way that these relationships manifest are very obvious, and they're very concerning, really. Like, a good example very recently, right, is that in my state of Tennessee, in most southern states, the state governments have decided that they're going to rescind the $300 unemployment, the extra unemployment benefits. I think it's $300 per week. I don't qualify for unemployment, so I haven't been on unemployment. Nobody get mad at me. Um, but but at any rate, so a lot of southern states governments have rescinded basically their state's participation in a federal program to make unemployment benefits last longer and and pay out more, because a lot of especially restaurant and service industry businesses are having a problem getting workers back after the pandemic. And it's very obvious to see why. Why would you go out and get in the case of my state, right? Most service jobs are like 7.25 to 8.25 an hour. Why would you go out and get a service job when unemployment is paying out, you know, um, vastly more than that amount? And it's just better to sit at home. And I mean, that's not a reflection of laziness. It's a reflection of people's desire not to spend hours out of their day doing something that they don't enjoy to not be compensated enough to live. And that's a real problem that we have in our economy. And this is something I think that would be very profitable for a conservative, reactionary, or traditionalist sort of political movement to grapple with, is the fact that we want to have these sort of family first approaches to policy. We want to sort of have these we want to sort of put an emphasis on community, on the autonomy of the family and of individual communities, but we don't want to do the things that would be required to give people a level of economic security that would allow them to, I don't know, participate in church. This is a big thing, as a matter of fact. Like, if you want people to go to church on Sunday, it would probably be helpful that, people in poverty be able to have a day off of work, i.e. Sunday, that they could go to church. And most service jobs, McDonald's, right, is open on Sunday, and they want people to work on Sunday. And I've turned down jobs before because they refused to give me my Sunday off. And some people don't have that luxury, or they don't have the fortitude to stand up to their boss and ask for time off so that they can even do things that are necessary for their soul, like go to church. That's aside from just actual time for leisure that people need. So I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent, but basically what I'm trying to say is that there are all these systemic problems in the U.S. economy that are obvious to the senses, I think, just obvious to people living out in the world. And a lot of these very thoughtful socialists, they draw attention to these things. And then and that's good, right? You want people to be able to diagnose the problem. And then they go about maybe talking about solutions. And when they talk about solutions, it's almost always either something that would be obviously counterproductive, like it's the root of the problem in the first place. Like, for example, a lot of times the solution to the over centralization of power in this sort of conglomeration of government and business, which in the modern Western world, we kind of have this, it doesn't have the characteristics, right, of any of the typical fascist regimes of the 20th century, but we have this almost fascistic level of cooperation and sort of nepotism between the heights of industry and government. And that's a prominent problem. But then the solution is just to, we go, what do? We do dictatorship of the proletariat if you're a communist, right? Or, the solution is just, we're going to have communal decision making over distributing the means of production, or distributing the fruits of the means of production. The people, which just means the government, controls the means of production, and so on and so forth. And it's like, this is the least effective solution that I can think of, because as we've seen historically in historical socialist, communist regimes, whatever, if we want to start playing No True Scotsman, we can. What you end up with is transferal of economic decision making between these sort of captain of industry types that we're dealing with right now, and bureaucrats and bean counters. And because functionally, what you say when you say the people will own the means of production, what you really mean is the government will own the means of production, because that's just how it has to work, because Joe Blow, the farmer, does not have time to drive his tractor to Washington to sit in on the meeting of, the Budget Reconciliation Committee. He probably doesn't even have time to Skype in from his farmhouse at 8 p.m. or whenever. It's completely impractical to have like direct democracy, or a, to even have like more popular representation than we already have. So what you're talking about is you're talking about handing the means of production over to the government, and it's like, okay, I'm not one of these people that thinks the government can never do anything right, but I don't trust the government substantially more than I trust corporations. It's just that sort of government workers and government institutions have different priorities than businesses, but those don't always help me either. But as I was saying, so when you transfer the means of production to the people, you're transferring it to the government. What that means in practice is you're transferring it to bureaucrats. And okay, that's a new way to organize the economy. That's true, but it's not immediately evident to me that this is a better way to organize the economy. It seems to me like the solution would be to sort of devolve a lot of economic decision making from a centralized apparatus to a decentralized apparatus. And it seems like there needs to be more economic decision making on the on the lower level, right? So a lot of socialists like to talk about solidarity, but they don't talk so much about subsidiarity. So if you can do something at the local level, should do it at the local level. And there's this tendency to want to just jump over the county, the state level in the United States. That would be our divisions. There's a tendency to jump over all that and just say, well, some guy that we like in Washington is going to make all the decisions, and they're going to make the decisions that we like. And that's okay. That's not really a principal position, and it's not like you cloak yourself in this. Okay, we're for the worker, we're men of principle, and then what your solution amounts to is just, we want we want our guy to get in to do the things that we want, i.e., we want to loot the state, just like everybody else. How republics work, right? You get your guy in, he loots the state for you. It just so happens that you represent what, the working class. That's okay, fine. The I wouldn't mind the working class looting the state for a while, but it's really not a sustainable way to organize the economic situation in a polity. And then sometimes you just have very vague and or just non-committal answers to things, like, well, if people just worked together, then X, Y, and Z would happen. It's like, what what does that even mean? People work together, people not working together now? You have to be more concrete. You have to say, well, we have to eliminate certain incentive structures. And to be fair, sometimes they do that. And it's eliminating negative incentive structures is very important. But then what you replace them with doesn't always get as much detail. So I'm not one of these people, like I said, that's going to say, well, the government can't run anything right. I'm just saying you have to demonstrate to me that whatever it is you want to put in the hands of your committee or your workers' co-op or whatever, this is the kind of thing that they're qualified to handle. For example, with factories, I think a factory could be run by a workers' co-op. I just it just depends, right? There's nothing stopping people from forming workers' co-ops right now, and if we want to rewrite the legislation to make it easier for people to form workers' co-ops, because for whatever reason, right? Maybe there's systemic hurdles to starting a workers' co-op. Okay, that's fine. We rewrite the laws to make it an even playing field. But it doesn't seem to me immediately apparent that that's just a better solution than, say, I don't know, giving your employees stock options or buy-in options where they actually start to own parts of the company. And this would go back to sort of the difference in tendency between people who would describe themselves more as like economically in line with Catholic social teaching, and people who are just socialists par excellence. And then this goes back to the sort of cultural antagonisms that go along with socialists and traditionalists. Is that very often somebody has decided to start their large truck outside. I'm not sure you guys could hear that. Anyway, very often people who have a very similar take on things, who understand and diagnose problems the same, like me, a traditionalist Catholic, can look at the job situation in the United States and things like the two-income trap, things like people not being able to have health benefits, et cetera, et cetera. And I would say we have a perverse economic system. We have an economic system that does not allow people to get ahead in life and to to do the basic things that would allow them to have a good life, to have a to sustain a family, really. Um, so I see that we both see that, socialists, traditionalist Catholics, we see these things. And well, I should I should caveat that some very conservative Catholics are sort of apologists for the sort of hyper capitalism of the United States current system, but I don't see why they would be. And I hope that that's a minority. But at any rate, I don't think it's consonant with Catholic social teaching. And then there's other issues that we would agree on. Like, I agree that the United States has problems with imperial entanglements, that we force our way of life on other people, and there's no reason to do so. I don't even like the American way of life, so obviously I don't want it forced on anybody else. Um, and we are reckless and unaccountable in our use of military power. Like, all these things are very people can agree on. But then there are all these cultural fissures that start to erupt, where by and large, most modern socialists, even though they emphasize the economic aspect, they're also socially progressive, right? And it doesn't seem obvious to me that you can't solve the economic problems while maintaining social conservatism. And actually, it seems like it will go hand in hand. Like, social conservatism plus economic reforms would be the way to go. And in my opinion, right, it would make people happier. And a lot of socialists, I don't think they put the dots together, where they see all these trends like the normalization of novel sexual identities, or other sort of cultural phenomena, and they don't see how that's connected to just a general drive within the capitalist system for commodification, even of like people themselves and their own identities, and how that's unhealthy. I feel like old school socialists, right, might have understood that, especially in the American context. I think socialists in the American context were a little bit more conservative than socialists are nowadays. Sort of in the historical context, before the Socialist Party of the United States became a political pariah, right before the Red Scare and all that. So it's just really disappointing to me, I guess I would say. That I'll be listening to a video, I'll be nodding along, I'll be yeah, I get it, I understand, and then it's like, and another thing, these conservatives, and they believe that Jesus loved capitalism when Jesus was a brown hippie who embraced workers' rights. It's like, no, not really. No, I mean, he was brown. That's true, I guess, but he wasn't a hippie. And when you repeat these sort of like left-wing cultural tropes, it really turns off people. And I would say it turns off a large segment of the working class who, yeah, they would like to get paid better, they would like to live in a just economic paradigm, but they don't want the other stuff that's for some reason needs to be tacked onto that. Like, why is our just economic system contingent on me apparently subordinating my Catholic faith to this broader sort of revolutionary political scheme? That doesn't seem like a way to, it doesn't seem like a way to build the kind of broad tent coalition that you want. And I think really what it's meant to do is sort of appeal to, um, the large section of my generation and people immediately older than me who don't have the kinds of community ties that like a church or religion gives them, and they're just really angry and fed up because they've been put in an economic situation that is truly adverse, that they didn't ask for, they don't deserve, and they can't get ahead in life, and they can't succeed with the same kind of regularity that the previous generation could succeed, even in like basic things like getting married, having children, doing something with your life that you don't hate, being able to find a different job and not feeling like you're a serf that you can't leave the land, you can't at risk it. No, I'm not going to say that, but um, yeah, it's an adverse situation that this generation has been put in, and it seems like that's sort of the crowd that they want to speak to, but they don't give them anything. They don't give them anything in the meantime, right? Like in Christianity, you can if the situation is hard, that's okay. Situations are bound to be hard. That's just life. And you can take solace in the fact of knowing that God is with you, that He's with you even in the midst of tribulation. Whereas, of course, socialists they've always got this utopian eschatological understanding of the good times, of what we're all working for. And what that really does is it casts a pale back on your own life, where you just sort of you end up kind of wallowing in misery, and you get angry and you get frustrated. And I don't think these are very helpful emotions to cultivate in people, especially who are facing the kind of obstacles that young people in the West are facing today. So I think that the approach is counterproductive, even if some of the diagnoses of the problem are spot on. So that's my take, my extemporaneous take on socialists and how they lack imagination. Really, I would just, I would just, I would suggest that they take their very real, very valid concerns about the way that the Western world operates, or the global system operates, if you want to be even more expansive, and just try to think outside the box of other ways that we could solve these problems and other needs that people have in their life other than just these material concerns, because I think that can also cause us to get off track. But at any rate, guys, I just want to say in closing, right, that I have the utmost respect for people of other intellectual traditions, that I don't mean to denigrate anyone by my words here. And of course, I wish everyone a good rest of the day, and God bless.